Is it very hard to get here from where you guys are? Or?
No, it's
Okay.
really easy. Subway ride.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice day too. Finally,
Oh,
it
it's
was
beautiful,
cold the other
mild.
day. Yeah, I know it's good. Anyway, I've been looking at a lot of your site and everything. It's good, and bear with my ignorance, but I'm really going to be learning, so bear with me. Okay.
I'm happy to be here to talk about
Well, I'm
whatever.
happy to have you here, and welcome very much to Conversations, where it's a pleasure to welcome to the program Carolyn Dean. And Carolyn is a medical doctor, and she's a health activist, I'm fair to say. And she also she's an ND, which is a
naturopathic doctor.
Naturopathic doctor. We're going to be learning about that, and we're going to be learning about questions of health and some alternative medicine notions and diet and so forth. And Carolyn, welcome really very, very much to Conversation.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy to have you here. And I wonder maybe you could share your own, as I said to you, could you share your own background, please? Because we're going to anchor this program on you and some of your perceptions. And I know what you're doing is very important, and I want to learn a great deal. But could you could you share with us some of your own background, where you were born and raised, that sort of thing?
Well, I'll start with the fact that my grandmother was a homeopath. She was a nurse and a homeopath in Boston. And when my grandfather developed lead poisoning, he was a photo engraver and an inventor. His doctor said, well, you have to sweat it out. You have to go into the backwoods. They had relatives up in Newfoundland. So my dad, who was entered into Harvard Medical School, was taken out of high school along with his younger brother. They went up to the backwoods of Newfoundland, for Pete's sakes. And so that's where my dad ended up. During the war, he went to Scotland, met my mother, war bride, came back to Newfoundland. I was the second born. And my mom said, well, when Carolyn can walk, we're out of here.
Oh, really?
The backwoods of Newfoundland.
Really?
You know?
It's pretty wild up there. Yeah.
So by 8 months, I was walking.
I see, right. Got out of Newfoundland.
So although Newfoundland's a beautiful place, I mean, there's, there's nothing there.
Is that where Eric the Red landed, or Leif Erikson and that?
A lot of things happened in Newfoundland. So that's where I started out. We moved to Nova Scotia. I grew up there.
So you're Canadian.
I'm a Canadian.
Yeah, your grandfather was Boston, right?
Right. Well, my parents, they were Canadian, but they lived in Boston.
I see.
There was a lot of reciprocity back then, not like today.
And you said he was a homeopath?
My grandmother, not my grandfather, my grandmother.
Could you, maybe that's a place to begin. What does that mean, homeopath?
Well, homeopathy.
Homeopathy, yeah.
It's a system of medicine that started in the mid-1800s. Doctor named Hahnemann, he decided from some experiments with quinine that was being used for malaria that people in this quinine laboratory, thousands of miles away from malaria country, were coming down with malaria symptoms. And he attributed it to tiny, tiny doses of quinine. Quinine in pharmaceutical amounts was treating malaria or preventing it in some ways, but in tiny, tiny doses it could actually stimulate the symptoms that the prescription would treat. So he decided that perhaps tiny amounts of substances could actually stimulate symptoms and prevent symptoms, almost like an immunization.
Like an immunization, I was thinking, yeah.
So it's a fascinating study of medicine which uses very safe medicines in very dilute amounts.
I see. And you say 19th century, did you say?
Yes.
It got started?
Yes, and we know in Canada more about homeopathy because the British royal family uses it, and that's what they attribute their longevity to, is the use of homeopathy and dietary supplements and natural traditional medicines of herbs, etc., instead of resorting to pharmaceuticals. So my whole focus in my work as a medical doctor and a naturopath is to use non-drug substances up to the point where you need something that is strong like a drug. But unfortunately, in modern medicine today, the focus is so much on pharmaceutical drugs first, instead of using common natural substances first.
Have they been using for the centuries? They've been using those. You had the herbs and things that they found were effective in treating things. That homeopathy is interesting. There's a kit with just little small amounts of things that could be carried around and used on a prophylactic basis. That homeopathy could be used, or
it can be, but more often it's used if you get an acute injury. For example, you'd use arnica. Arnica is from a plant called Arnica montana. It grows in mountains. And the story there is when mountain goats fall off a cliff, they'll roll over and start munching on the arnica plant.
Really?
Well, if you make that up in homeopathic potencies, and it's put in little pellets or in little drops. I use it myself if I've had a lot of injuries. I'll just have some in my knapsack. When I have a rollerblading accident, I'll just kind of roll over, pop open the arnica, take a swig, and you know, seriously, the shock, the pain, the swelling, and the bleeding really calms down very quickly. So it's an injury medicine. It can be used also for constitutional problems, which means a qualified homeopath would read a person's constitution from taking their history and looking at all their signs and symptoms and actually give them a remedy that could help many aspects of their condition.
And are these are remedies that go back over the ages, herbs and things, or are they chemicals, or are they naturally occurring?
Naturally occurring for the most part.
Yeah.
But for example, in one of my books I talk about if a person has to take a drug and they have side effects from the drug, they can all actually take a part of that drug or an amount of that drug and shake it up in water. And this is how you make a homeopathic remedy, actually.
Dilute it.
Dilute it in water, and then take a part of that dilution, put it in some more water, shake it up, dilute it again. Do that about 6 times till, I mean, there's almost nothing left. However, the water molecules change conformation. They change their shape and take on the properties of that drug or substance that you're shaking up. And then when you put that in your body, the body gets a memory of you know, like an aspect of that drug. And then the body says, it kind of looks through itself, mirrors itself with that drug, and excretes the drug from the body. It's a detoxifier in the way I'm talking about.
That's really interesting.
It's incredible work.
You're a medical doctor, so you went through medical training in the traditional kind of Western medicine thing.
Yeah, I went to one of the toughest medical schools in North America.
McGill or?
No, Dalhousie University in Halifax.
It sounds tough.
Dalhousie.
Yeah, right.
In third-year medicine, we were writing fourth-year American boards in order to get a pass. So
you had a bona fide medical educational training in the Western tradition that you intake. And if I may, it seems it was your natural approach to things. May be seen with looking askance the way some doctors tend to see things. And I was wondering, the medical profession, as it is, you know, with your board certifications or whatever is involved, what is the general attitude of the medical profession toward this homeopathy and this traditional pattern that you're singing the praises of, it sounds to me like?
Well, right now, I'm writing a book called Death by Modern Medicine.
Great title. Have you got a trademark on that title? That's a great death. It sounds like something like Hercule Poirot or something.
Death by Modern Medicine. We have the website nailed down.
Good.
Well, why I wrote this book is because modern medicine focuses on drugs. Day one in my medical school training, we were told, and this was in the mid-1970s. I've been studying natural medicine for 35 years. So in the mid-1970s, they were saying, stay away from chiropractors. They're quacks.
Acupuncture.
Well, they did acupuncture. I mean,
off
it was
the radar,
around.
Right? Yeah.
It was before Nixon went to China. And they were saying, stay away from health food faddists. all this business about vitamins and minerals, it's all a bunch of crock. Now, what happened in medical school back then, mostly it was students were taken on after 2 years of, say, a BS. I had my BSc degree in biology when I went into medicine, but most people were very young. I went in as a mature student. I was around 25 when I went into med school in the mid-70s. And what I'm trying to say is that these young people were brainwashed or indoctrinated from the beginning that modern medicine was all there is. Don't go to chiropractors, don't listen to health faddists. When we train you in our 7 or 8 years, you'll have everything you need to know about medicine.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, we were taught biochemistry. Our president of the medical university was a biochemist, so we had hundreds of hours of biochemistry, which means the Krebs cycle, the energy cycles in the body.
What's the Krebs cycle? I'm sorry, I don't know.
It's just the cycle that anyone who's taken chemistry or biology has heard about, and it's a horrendous thing to have to memorize. But when you look at this cycle of about 10 different transitions, every pathway is determined and triggered by a vitamin or mineral. And when I saw that, I had already been studying nutrition, and I went into medicine because I thought, well, I want to do nutrition. Nobody's listening to me, so I might as well get my medical degree, and then people will have to listen.
Yes, yeah.
And when I saw that, I said, well, there's the basis of the energy cycle in the body. Everything that is done in the body requires a vitamin and mineral as a cofactor. The book that I gave you that triggered off our conversation.
The Miracle of Magnesium.
The Miracle of Magnesium. Magnesium is required in over 325 different enzyme reactions in the body. Now that means thousands of metabolic processes require magnesium. So here's the disparity. I'm in medical school, and my biochemistry is saying you need all these vitamins and minerals. I mean, like the B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium, potassium, selenium. You need them for the body to work. Whereas our pharmacology doctors were saying, well, you just need this drug for this symptom. We'll get a diagnosis of this patient, and then we'll find out what drug is needed. Whereas what I realized is that if a person doesn't have enough energy, if they're fatigued, maybe it's something that's wrong with their Krebs cycle because they don't have enough magnesium or B vitamins to make the ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate energy packets in the body. So there's this incredible imbalance.
Well, that would be things that would have been normal. We've been around 200,000 years, and we haven't had this modern medicine, except relatively recently. It has brought miracles. I'm glad there's penicillin and automycin and so on. But we haven't had that. But that would have been those things that the body needs would have been, I presume, over the longer haul and continuing, got by the food you ingest and that sort of thing, and have a good, well-balanced, and maybe a mineral supplement or something that could be added. But haven't people been aware of that for a long time? I don't quite. And you said pathways. You were talking about pathways. And so that's part of the biochemistry of the organism, I guess.
And what you said was perfect. You know, for a couple 100,000 years, we've been depending on substances like magnesium. A lot of biochemists call magnesium the mineral. Like the original, you know, the primo.
The country, the city in Mesopotamia, beginning of civilization,
the beginning of civilization.
Right.
Because magnesium is required in chlorophyll for plants to work. It's the main mineral in one-celled organisms. So from the beginning of life, I call magnesium the spark of life. So with this spark of magnesium, plants grew and one-celled organisms grew, and then we developed. So magnesium has always been around. And then when I come to medical school, and as you say, the past 100 years of modern scientific medicine, where we're talking more about drugs and it's got to be scientifically proven, they take us away from the original elements and take us away from our natural vitamins and minerals in our food and determine that all we need are drugs. So again, I come to the disparity.
But it has to be proven, you say, you do have faith in the scientific process and the way of getting at things, or do you bring question to the scientific process itself or the scientific, approach? And I mean, couldn't the use of magnesium being effectively good, let's say, for the organism, be scientifically demonstrated? So you're not in an exception to the idea of using good science in order to advance knowledge, are you?
Well,
because you studied biochemistry, you have to
Right.
believe in the scientific process.
Right. You said it right there about good science. And what we're seeing now in a number of books that have come out, Dr. Marcia Engel, a former editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, wrote a book, I think it's called The Truth About Drug Companies, How They Deceive Us.
Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Now what's happened in the past couple of decades, and we see right now the Vioxx scandal and the Celebrex scandal.
Aleve now they're looking at yesterday on the
all
news.
These COX inhibitors and all the anti-inflammatory drugs are causing heart disease. And what's happened with the science of where the pharmaceutical companies have said that they're doing scientific studies to prove that these things are beneficial. Well, in fact, ghostwriters write their articles. They've hidden the negative findings of their studies. They put these drugs on the market and use massive advertising to sell them. And
it's a big business,
it's
huge business. Yeah, so
we call it big pharma.
Big pharma, yeah.
And how I bring magnesium back into this picture is that when you take a substance, any sort of drug or toxin, even alcohol, and ingest it, your magnesium levels drop. When magnesium drops in the body, calcium is elevated. I talk about it in The Miracle of Magnesium quite a lot.
Yeah.
So that the anti-inflammatories, the reason why they're perhaps causing this heart disease is when you take these drugs, magnesium levels drop, calcium comes up, and you start having artery spasms, calcium builds up in the arteries, and you can actually get heart attacks and heart blockages and arrhythmias because of too much calcium and not enough magnesium. So when they talk about anti-inflammatories like Vioxx causing heart disease, they're not saying how that's caused. I'm saying the cause may be a deficiency of magnesium that's caused by these drugs.
Are you then in the magnesium, or in the general thrust of what you're saying is that tried and true methods of which we've been able to function prior to the burst of medical knowledge and new drugs and so forth, we might do well to repair to some of the tried and true nutritional ideas of a more natural way of living rather than...
Yes, we have to.
Yes.
We really have to, and there are millions of people out there now that have been taking Vioxx and Celebrex and Aleve that don't know what to do. And unfortunately, their doctors trained in modern medicine don't know what to tell them. With my training as a naturopathic doctor, I look at joint pain and arthritis, and I see a whole different picture. I don't just see some sort of pain and inflammation that has to be suppressed. I look at the cause.
Well, doesn't medical science try and do that, or medical doctors?
No.
They don't look at, try to get at the cause?
No, they look
Why
at
would they not? I mean, that would be logical.
Well, logic doesn't enter into a situation in modern medicine where you have a symptom and you look for a drug to suppress the symptom.
Could we make a difference? You're talking about magnesium and the other nutrients, phytonutrients or whatever there is, and we've got that from our diet and from the air and all kinds of considerations of a natural way of dealing with what we call drugs. I mean, what differentiates, is magnesium, that's a mineral. I mean, what differentiates what you call a drug from the pharmaceutical industry or the you know, that kind of thing, from these things you're talking about, phytonutrients?
Yeah, excellent point.
How do you make the differentiation?
Because in modern medicine, the way the money cycle goes, in order to make money on a drug, it has to be patented. In order to patent a drug, it has to be synthetic. You can't patent a natural substance. Therefore, magnesium is not a drug, it's a natural substance. And it can never be patented. Therefore, since the thrust of modern medicine is big pharma, they will want to create a patented drug that they can own for a period of 17 years on a patent and make a lot of money from before it goes off their patent or before it goes on a generic prescription.
I see. I understand. So it's a money thing, and that's a dangerous thing when that rears its ugly head.
Right.
But I mean, the thing is, like, I'm trying to understand things at a certain kind of level. Like, it seems to me everything is chemistry in a certain sense. If you break it down, it's all the chemical bound and everything like that.
But
everything is chemistry. And what differentiates synthetic?
And there's natural.
All right. What differentiates the synthetic? Because if you take something, it's all going to break down to chemistry.
Well, magnesium is in the earth.
Yeah.
You mine it. Certain vitamins, they're in the foods. Like the B vitamins are in brewer's yeast and in whole grains.
But they're also in tablets that they put out as having vitamin B tablet that has the chemical creation of the vitamin B, and that is as it appears in nature, except they make it in some factory somewhere, but it's still vitamin B.
There are
and it's still a chemical.
Good point.
Yeah.
There are synthetic vitamins.
Right.
And I have an issue with those as well.
Okay.
Because when you have a natural form of a nutrient, let's take vitamin C. If you squeeze an orange, and the orange juice has natural vitamin C.
All right.
But you can make it synthetically.
Yeah.
And the body
What's
doesn't...
the difference?
Well, the body, it's a left-handed and right-handed conformation, levo and dextro forms.
I don't know what that means.
Well, if you look
vitamin C you're talking specifically
Yeah, I'm talking
now?
about vitamin C.
Yeah.
Natural vitamin C, let's say it has this conformation. Synthetic vitamin C has that conformation. They're different. And the body will only accept something coming into it that way. But if you have this, it's not going to be able to join the body in that, say, that's Krebs cycle, in the right conformation.
You used that term before, Krebs cycle. I don't know what that term means.
It's just a cycle in the body for making energy. And it requires natural vitamin C.
Natural. This is what I'm trying to get at.
If you put a synthetic in the body looks upon that as a foreign substance. So what it boils down to...
So the vitamin C tablets that we take are foreign? They're no good? They
Some
don't
of them,
work? They do or they don't?
If they say that
Sometimes they
they're
do?
from a natural source, then they are more acceptable to the body than from a synthetic source.
Would the medical profession or the people who are interested in these things accept your notion of this left and right, and that the natural somehow from a grapefruit and an orange rather than from a manufactured synthetic vitamin C? Would they accept that as doctrine,
is some acceptance.
or would they would they take
there
exception to your?
There is some acceptance of it, but there hasn't been enough research on there. You see, in the dietary supplement world, there's not a lot of research funding. Most of the funding comes from drug companies, and as I've already described, drug companies fund research on patented medicines that are totally synthetic.
And you said that things that are natural can't be patented.
Yeah, and things that are natural cannot be patented.
I want to get a
a
differentiation between natural and manufactured, and then maybe an interface between technological intervention in the process by mankind and the things that mankind can come up with in other things like media and other kinds of things. We have an input into things, and some people think the natural order would be better if we didn't have our input, our intellectual neocortex input, that kind of question I'm getting at.
So what happens is if there isn't the research being done on whether or not the body will accept synthetic versus natural.
This thing you were doing.
Right.
The research isn't there to prove scientifically that which you're saying is the case? Or is it there?
There is some research
there,
but not enough.
Surmise on your part?
Well, what I'm saying is very true. And all I'm saying is they haven't done enough research for us to make a big enough case for people to understand it. So what happens is in the whole business of drug companies wanting to promote patented drugs that they can sell, they're actually promoting more and more synthetic vitamins and minerals.
Is synthetic in your vocabulary, is synthetic fake? Or is it's a pejorative negative thing, something that is made by mankind out of their brain and in the laboratory is somehow against the natural order?
Yes.
You have that feeling about the evolution of consciousness and biological evolution in general.
Of course.
That what is made by the hand of man through his brain process and so forth is somehow synthetic to a natural order?
Yes,
okay.
I mean, it's...
You distrust technology?
Well...
And, you know, polio vaccine?
Technology is probably going to save us in the end.
That's what philosophically, that's what I was getting at.
Philosophically. You know, if you look at cold fusion energy, I think eventually we'll come to a point where that will save us.
But that's fake. We're faking it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, you're going into a vast generalization here.
I tend to do that.
Well, maybe that's a magnesium deficiency.
Maybe it could well be. You might be right.
You know, one of the things about magnesium is that it equates with our thought processes. In order for nerve transmissions in the brain,
isn't it amazing?
Which is our thought processes, you require magnesium. What happens is if you have enough magnesium in the brain, then it balances out calcium, which is the actual calcium channel that is talked about as transmitting nerve impulses. People who don't have enough magnesium can get into obsessive compulsive
a lot of that around now.
Situations where they focus on one idea all the time.
Not only magnesium, but naturally occurring magnesium in your calculus.
They can't make magnesium synthetic.
They can't.
No, that is more with vitamins that they can make them synthetically. But magnesium occurs naturally in the ground, and it can be bound with things like oxide, a magnesium oxide, or magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate. Magnesium sulfate is Epsom salts. If you want to relax, you put some Epsom salts in a bath and you relax.
So you use the term natural things occurring, herbal things that occur in nature, and you have a great faith in that organic farming, organic processes, homeopathy, these kind of things, as opposed to the input of technological manipulation of things by mankind in general.
That's a good point. Let's look at agriculture. You mentioned organic farming. Well, what happened after World War II was...
Green Revolution, among other things.
Well, people said that the technology and all the machinery of war was put on the land, put on agriculture, so that we started spraying crops for bugs and using a lot of pesticides and herbicides and a lot of chemical fertilizers.
Messing with the natural order, huh?
It's incredible, yes. We killed off the soil to the extent that there are no bacteria in the soil anymore that help to take up nutrients from the soil. So in fact, just here in December 2004, a study out of University of Texas in Austin, they looked at 43 garden crops, and they compared the amounts of protein and calcium and vitamin B2 and phosphorus and in the soil with what had been in the soil in 1950.
And the samples were, I mean, the methodology was accurate to measure
They
those?
tried to make it as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
What they found is with vitamin B2, very important vitamin for the brain and the nervous system and for preventing heart disease, all kinds of things, it was decreased by 38%. Now that is astounding because what they've been saying all these years is, oh, you can get your vitamins from the soil, oh, don't worry. And they've never done a study to say, well, are the vitamins still in the soil? Now, another astounding fact is back then they had not even measured for magnesium or many other vitamins like vitamin B6 so that we don't know what they had back then. So we'll just have to assume that there's been a decline in the nutrients in our soil. So we can never say that you can get all your nutrients from your food.
As we had over the longer
haul.
Well,
that's what doctors will tell you all the time, even today. When you say,
so we need vitamin nutrient supplements.
We definitely do. And what's difficult now in terms of people having access to dietary supplements, you mentioned I was a health activist. I've been over to Germany, to Bonn, Germany, at what's called the Codex Alimentarius meetings to find out what's happening with the world.
Alimentarius?
Codex Alimentarius. It's
that's like that's like food or something.
It's a food law.
Yeah, right.
It's Latin for food law or code. And in 1995, the Codex, which is institution of the UN and the World Health Organization.
Okay.
Well, 10 years ago, it was taken over by the World Trade Organization, and they're trying to kind of level the playing field throughout the world in terms of food standards and food supplement standards. And what they're doing is they're taking all the vitamins and minerals and saying, well, we only need this much. They're taking what we call the RDAs, or the recommended dietary allowances, or they're looking at the risk factors of taking too many supplements. They're trying to scare people into thinking that dietary supplements are like drugs. Now, they aren't like that at all. And sort of moving back to what I was talking about with the drug companies, the drug companies are trying to take over supplements as if they were synthetic drugs.
Right, and make them illegal so that you fall back upon the need to buy the products from, it's a economic driven thing.
It's terrible.
And they could outlaw supplements that are perfectly good and available in health stores and other kinds of things if they carry to the extreme?
They are doing that in Australia, in Denmark, and now in the UK, and in the European Union. What's happened is, I guess, as I mentioned before, they're looking at these dietary supplements as if they were drugs in order to control them. And in these countries, since the European Union is legislating supplements, for example, in Germany, there are no health food stores. You cannot go into a health food store and get vitamin E or 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C.
They don't have them?
They don't have them.
How can they not in a civilized, advanced country like Germany? Why do they not? Is that because of law?
Yeah. They have legislated them away. Now, in America, we have access to dietary supplements, but all the time we're hearing about how dangerous they are and that the government wants to legislate them. And this is a move to control them as if they were drugs so that they are more available just on prescription through drug companies. The price will be escalated.
Right. It's an economic thing. It's like a cartelization of the whole process in order to get bottom line considerations for those that would do it. Seems yeah, the drug thing is a really big question. We got the drugs. You come up drugs, they say these are natural occurring supplements, that kind of drug things. We got drugs like they've got this attitude about marijuana. Anything that's going to be psychoactive or something, I don't quite know why, but they see that alcohol be there, and they got this attitude toward drugs, and then they see the drugs are dangerous. So we have another big one that's just surfacing now. It's interesting, there was an article in the Time magazine I just happened to read yesterday about steroids. And you've got, they're so against the use of steroids to enhance the body process, so it is a natural body process, that they're going to compete in a natural way, back again to your natural notion of the thing, but they're going to be a disadvantage, they're going to advantage the people that take them and so forth, and that they're asking, the nation is all drugged out, using drugs all over the place, but on that thing they're going to try and run standards that they can't use anything to enhance their athletic capability or something. The thrust of this article was that maybe they should be able to use them. And what is it about the human psychology that does not want to have any intervention into some sort of a natural process that is being enhanced by human knowledge and ability to influence the biological process? Why is there that attitude?
Well, let's get into the 4 bodies.
4 bodies?
Well, you know, Bob Dobbs' work.
Yeah, Bob Dobbs, yeah.
There's the TV body, the internet body, the chemical body, and the astral body. So we've got people who are enhancing their chemical body with all these drugs. We've got kids growing up on Ritalin, and then they don't know how to interact socially, so they take Prozac, and then they go to college. You know, it's a drugged world. And so to enhance their performance with steroids is, you know, they think that's natural for their chemical body.
And it is not natural?
Of course not. Well, with steroids, there's a real chemical, physical problem with that, because when you take steroids, you suppress your adrenal glands. You create a situation where a person can be so affected by stress that they become anxious and irritable. It affects the bones. You get osteoporosis. Women grow hair, men grow breasts. I mean, these things are really not natural.
Again, natural. What is natural, and what is the role of hard-won knowledge to make something different than is given in an Eden-like sense? Most all of the creatures engage the world in a way where they just engage it in a passive way, that they just deal with it. But the human consciousness seems to be able to make things different. And I have to say, I'm pleased. Like, I would never want to live in a world before they had anesthetic. For instance, in the case of having to have, I'm glad that they finally have eliminated polio with a vaccine. Is that unnatural? Smallpox, is that unnatural?
My turn. You're talking about,
set me straight.
First nature and second nature.
Okay.
So first nature is, you know, Garden of Eden, what we have available around us. Second nature are the extensions of man, a la Marshall McLuhan, what we can create. And there can be a balance. I mean, sure, we love the aspects of second nature. We love TV, internet. We love certain chemicals that can help us.
But that's unnatural.
And, well, we can live with some of both.
Right, that's what I'm saying in the medical world, too.
Well,
that's what I'm saying, because you're saying natural is somehow we're in Eden. And that the unnatural is everything else that is synthetic that we've conjured with our mind. That's what I'm trying to get to. We would still be living in the forest or something, and dying at 20 years old.
Oh, yes. I mean, in some of the third world countries, you can die of a wound.
That's the distinction I was trying to make.
Well, then, you know, there's no yes, no. We're not digital in all aspects.
Including health.
There is a spectrum. If you come to me with your obsessive compulsive disorder and
of the day,
du
jour,
and you want my help, I'm not going to say, well, here, take Prozac. I'm going to say, well, what's your diet like? And are you exercising? And what's your sleep like? What's going on in your world? There's this whole spectrum that I'll go through. It's not either, well, it's not even just take magnesium or take Prozac. There's much more to it. There are all the nuances. So you can't say that it's just natural or it's just synthetic. In medicine, unfortunately, modern medicine, the drug-based medicine, is trying to say to most patients who come in with an obsessive compulsive disorder, take Prozac.
Or anything.
They are very much on a blinded path of just using the drugs.
Using the drugs as opposed to other things that affect consciousness. Say in the case of drugs, I'm saying consciousness, but biological process, including consciousness. Drugs affect that, and diet affects that.
Yeah, I've given you the, drugs, exercise, lifestyle, the way you think.
Well, if you run, you get runner's high, you get endorphin. And we now know, what, from 30 or 40 years, we know about neurotransmitters. We know the biochemistry of consciousness and various moods.
And you know, with exercise, people who over-exercise, they reduce their levels of magnesium and other nutrients and actually set themselves up for
But then they could take some Gatorade
problems.
or something,
Gatorade is laced with sugar.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Sugar causes hypoglycemia, it reduces your magnesium, it causes diabetes in the long term, it causes obesity.
I asked you and you told me. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I'm learning, like I said, they got all that. So it's a question of balance. What do you counsel? Do you counsel moderation? Do you counsel reasonableness? Do you counsel
common sense?
Common sense.
I think
very good for you, dear.
Yeah, you said common sense. I think that was one of the first words you said in our conversation. It's all about moderation and common sense and using your own kind of intuition.
Yeah.
If you say to someone, well, do you think, I used to say this to kids in my practice, would you feed your puppy dog ice cream and chips and cookies? Oh, no, that wouldn't be right for, that would make them sick. And
my dog will eat anything. But anyway, go ahead,
And then I say to the kids, well, why would you eat it? And it makes them think. People do have this common sense, but I don't know.
I love ice cream, don't you?
Perhaps we've been
I think I'm addicted to hot fudge sundaes.
Yeah.
Is that bad? I love hot fudge sundaes.
And there's that magnesium deficiency and your focus on one-track mind and your need, you need magnesium.
I need magnesium rather than a hot fudge sundae? Okay. Why can't they? If I were the Lord, I'd set it up so hot fudge sundaes are really good for you. Why didn't they set it up so the things that are really good are good for you? Well, or are the things that are good, like broccoli, is that good for you?
Let's go back to sugar.
But it tastes terrible,
No, broccoli with some nice olive oil and lemon juice and vinegar dressing, spice things up.
It ain't a hot fudge sundae.
But look at sugar for a minute.
Yeah, okay.
In our body at any one time, we only have about 1 to 2 teaspoons of sugar.
Okay.
1 to 2 teaspoons.
Okay, I didn't know.
Not much. In a can of pop, 9 to 10 teaspoons of sugar.
And we're putting that into our body? Even if it's just in the alimentary, but it goes in that, does that all get metabolized?
And boom, it gets absorbed immediately into the bloodstream. We get a bit of a high, and then the pancreas has to put out a big surge of insulin to drop
That's a problem.
To push the blood sugar into the cells.
Yeah.
And if you do that 3-4 times a day, you're creating this up, down vicious cycle that overworks the insulin in the pancreas and creates what we now know as insulin resistance. The cells with the insulin constantly bombarding them finally shut down. And that's diabetes.
That's diabetes, big problem.
Big problem.
With dialysis and
Children of 10, 12 years old are developing adult onset diabetes.
No kidding, right?
Because after 10 years of drinking a few cans of soda and sugar products every day, you can't help but develop diabetes.
Okay, so you have this kind of alternative, and we have and you wrote what's the title of the book you're working on?
Death by Modern Medicine.
Death by Modern Medicine would say you have a sort of attitude toward things, I can see that and everything. And there's a lot of people feel that, and there's the thing, it's a big industry, people are getting rich on it, people are making money. I know a lot of doctors, I'm not sure if it's true, it's probably not true, that the first course you take in medical school is accounting. To keep track of the billing. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, but it is that, and a lot of people feel that and everything. So what would you counsel? Now we're talking to some people who are viewing. What would you counsel? People could go to your website. We want to let them know that. They could go and pick up on your train of thought in a large way. But what would you counsel in a general way for the population who might be interested in in their own personal health or the health of those around them, their loved ones and so forth. What are some general attitudes that are good for people to have?
Well, I hate to keep giving platitudes. I mean, there's diet, lifestyle, and exercise, but maybe I could say, look at the fact that we do have more than one body. That when you're sitting in front of the television and you see ads for junk food or whatever, it does stimulate your body to want junk food. Sitting in front of the internet
like hot
screen.
fudge sundaes.
Yeah, you do get stimulated. It's almost like, you know, the stimulation of the brain. It does create chemicals in the body.
Oh, no doubt.
I have studies on this.
Oh, no doubt of that.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And those chemicals actually cause a craving for carbohydrates. And if one realizes this on an intellectual level, you may say, oh, well, maybe I'm craving this because of that stimulation.
Not because it tastes good.
Right, and kind of use your willpower a bit in that way.
Willpower.
And use your common sense.
And if you use willpower and common sense, in what direction would it take one? Let's say, for instance, take it in a broad brush way. Diet. Are you counseling, or do you counsel, and for what reason? Let's say there are people who are called vegans, or people who are vegetarians, or people who will only eat wheatgrass or something. What would you counsel in terms of, let's say, diet, organic as opposed to
organic
commercial?
For sure, because we do have to avoid the pesticides and herbicides, because we know those chemicals are like fake hormones and they're toxic, etc. So I would go organic. You can join what's called community-supported agriculture, where you can buy a share in an organic farm and pick up a delivery every week. You can do that through the winter and join certain organizations that deliver organic. So you eat organic, and if you're going to take a supplement, start with magnesium. Pick up my book, The Miracle of Magnesium, and you can understand what we're talking about here. And get some exercise, move around, get your circulation going, and sweat, either through exercise or I like saunas. In New York, the saunas that the firemen are doing now, the firemen from 9/11, they're having incredible results by using the sauna therapy and the vitamin B3 niacin therapy to sweat out their toxins. So those are the things I would advise.
All right, and I saw the Green Revolution and the commercial. That's talking in terms of yourself or your family or something. So in a certain sense, some people say that one of the overweening problems of our society is narcissism, that it's a leading psychological problem. They're so wrapped up with themselves and their self that they will say, I will take care of myself. But now on a broad scale, I saw some people talking in Africa, and they were talking, among other things, about certain terminator seeds or biogenetically altered, and that's coming in gangbusters now, in terms of where you can grow plants that are very much bigger and they're much more successful with commercially generated new plant seeds and that sort of thing, technological intervention, and the people were saying, we don't want to hear about organic farming. That's nice for some yuppies who are going to, you know, that kind of thing for people that are going to lead that kind of life. It doesn't have practical sense. We've got people to feed, and by using this system, we can enhance the growth. And talking now not on a personalized yuppie basis of narcissistic concern, but for the broad question of feeding the people of the world.
No, that's
Could you address
business
that?
about genetically engineered seeds and terminator seeds is not what's really happening. Because with these seeds, they don't produce their own seeds.
Oh, they don't want to have them contaminated by the old natural thing.
No. You buy these seeds from these seed companies, and they don't produce they don't produce any seeds.
Well,
so that means you always have to buy new seeds. It's a way of controlling the market. You can, if you cannot collect your own seeds after a harvest for next year, these poor farmers in third world countries, they're going to all starve and die.
Well, they don't want to have cross-pollination with less than better generated seeds that they've come up with in the laboratory.
I don't know where you're getting your information.
No, but there were people on the ground who were saying, I don't want to hear about how we're going to let the bugs eat this and we're going to get the, the organic thing.
No,
we want to use the pesticides, get rid of the pests and grow the plants big because we got people to feed now and we don't have a lot of resources to be playing around.
I've already said that if you kill off all the organisms and the bacteria in the soil,
the plants will grow.
The plants will actually not take up any nutrients. You may get good-looking plants, but they're going to be empty of any nutrition.
So the green
you've got empty plants, and then you don't have any seeds at the end of the harvest to gather for next year's harvest. It's such an incredibly commercialized way of looking at farming that is totally synthetic.
They say,
and as for organic farming,
synthetic isn't necessarily bad.
No, let's not go there. Let's finish this topic. So when you look at organic farming, however, if you plant what they call companion crops, if you keep the soil rich and properly fertilized, bugs do not come and eat healthy plants. They eat diseased plants. So this whole business of trying to kill all the pests in the world is never going to serve us.
Well, I was only talking about the consciousness of people. I saw a documentary in Africa where they heard all about that kind of thing and everything, but they said, we are so happy that we got these things that grow so well. And it's part of the green revolution. And we got phosphate. We put it on the thing. We followed this, and we got results. And we're feeding people practically in a mass, not a special group.
What will happen in 10 years' time is the soil is going to be so dead, and it's going to be so denatured that nothing is going to grow, which is what's happening on our huge agri farms.
I don't think. Well, I don't see that.
There's the topsoil. From the studies and research that I was looking at from my magnesium book, the topsoil used to be like 20 inches deep, and now it's only an inch or so deep. There is such devastation. One of the papers I came across was, I think it was a 1934 congressional hearing on agriculture and soil. And these farmers were saying our soil is so denatured and empty in 1934.
What is it denatured of? They can fix protein, they can do that, they got things in the soil. When we came into...
Denatured, let me answer.
We had the Great Plains.
Let me answer. Denatured means that when they put fertilizers on the soil now, they're just nitrogen fertilizers. There's nothing else in them.
Why don't they make fertilizers that put everything there that they need?
Too expensive.
Why? Well,
too expensive.
It's too expensive?
Too expensive.
Okay.
So they just use a fertilizer that has some nitrogen and some, what they call potash, so that it makes the plants look good, but there's nothing in the fertilizer.
I do have to tell you, one time, not too long ago, I had a tomato. I got it at the store. It looked beautiful, and I swear to God, Carolyn, I swear to God, I got home and I cut that tomato, and I took a bite of it, and Carolyn, it had absolutely no taste at all. And I didn't have a cold. It had no taste. It was like styrofoam.
Looks great, but...
Looked great. Really did.
And people get to the point where they say, well, I don't want to eat vegetables. They taste horrible.
Because they do.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Whereas in my... organic farm that I started where I live, a community-supported agriculture.
You have an organic farm? You do?
Well, I joined one, and I created it so that a group of members where we live pay a share in this farm. They deliver to us every week for 24 weeks through the growing season. And you eat these tomatoes, and your mouth
Tastes
waters.
like a tomato when I was a kid?
I'll bring you some.
The tomatoes were good when I was a kid.
I'll bring you some next year. It's incredible. So what's happening is when people buy these beautiful-looking vegetables in these wonderful grocery stores, they, just as you do, they bring them home, and there's nothing there, and they say, yuck, what's the point?
That doesn't apply to ice cream, does it? Because ice cream's all manufactured. They get the cows. They get the milk. They get the cows or something. But in general, you've got a brief, as it were, against the medical profession in a certain sense. What was it again, the title of the book?
Death by Modern Medicine.
Death by Modern Medicine.
Yes.
You got to trademark that title. That is like a...
well, come to my website. Because
yes, I have been there, and we recommend people to do so.
And what we were getting to about the Africa and what I would suggest is I want people to become health activists and health advocates for their own health. Come to my website. There are organizations to join. I'm president of Friends of Freedom International.
Okay.
And what we do is in Canada, especially right now, and we're organizing in America as well, is we're creating bills and legislation, going to our parliament and saying, look, you know, we're having all these problems with drugs and modern medicine. Why can't we be more accepting of dietary supplements? Why can't we look at these as beneficial, positive things for our health to build up a healthier nation so that we won't be so sick and we won't, you know, be so crippled and be such a drain on the economy.
Yeah, right. Why don't we be healthy, right? Why don't we choose health rather than illness, right? Yeah. Well, that's a good general proposition. It probably makes too much good sense in order to get much traction in this society the way it's set up now. But I really congratulate you on the work and everything like that. And like I say, I got a lot to learn. And the books, the books you've written are really highly to be recommended by one and all. And particularly The Miracle of the Magnesium. And I'm looking for, when is the book on death by modern medicine going to hit the stands?
March 1st.
March 1st of 2005?
2005.
Oh, you got the publisher all lined up?
Oh, it's all lined up, yeah.
It sounds like you know, Death on the Nile or something.
It's going to be a blockbuster.
Yeah, but why not? Because there's a lot of people who have a brief against the medical profession with their greed and the pharmaceuticals.
The timing is perfect for a book like this. And I talk about self-responsibility and becoming an activist and really realizing that you can be your own doctor.
Yeah, right.
I mean, this business
That's subversive.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, they're going to keep you... Yeah, that is a subversive thing. People can do that. And then there's the autodidactic use of the internet. There's a possibility you could get things like that. And one of the best places you could go on the internet in order to get yourself started down this healthful path that Carolyn is helping to pioneer is to go to her site, which is carolyndean.com.
.com, that's it.
Okay, so we'll recommend that to you. We only touched the surface of a huge subject, but I really thank you very much for coming into the program. It's so good to see you here in the Christmas season of 2004-2005. And thanks a lot for coming in. Really a great pleasure. Really a great pleasure. Your pleasure. I have the perceptions then of Dr. Carolyn Dean MD, medical doctor, and ND,
Naturopathic doctor.
Naturopathic doctor, covering all the bases in a very real sense. Recommend her work to you very highly, and I'm recommending it to myself as well.
Magnesium.
Magnesium, among other things. And all the best of the holiday season to one and all. Carolyn, thanks a lot for coming in.
Thanks, Harold.
We'll be coming back again, well, tomorrow, so please do tune in. And once again, Carolyn, it's so good to talk to you, and I'm really looking forward to reading in depth the materials that you put forth. Thank you. Until tomorrow, then, thank you for viewing. So we just touched the surface, and all
that's great.
Yeah, I love the title of that. Did you come up with that title, or did Bobby or somebody help you with that title?
It began
Death
as a
by Modern
book.
Medicine.
It was the paper Death by Medicine.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't send that to you.
No, I haven't seen it.
I'll have to send that to you.
It's not on your site, or?
Yes, you can click on it.
Okay.
Because last year, Gary Null commissioned me to write it, this paper, Death by Medicine, where I developed the statistics on all the deaths in America.